Hey Rip City, this is Danny Avdia, and you're listening to The Briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Episode 166 of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Yet another off-season edition of The Briefcase. Hasn't really seemed like an off-season. There's been plenty of news throughout the off-season, I should say. More coming today. The NBA schedule released today. The 80-game schedule. It's not 82 anymore that they released. It's now just 80. Schedule released on Thursday. We'll look at Portland's schedule. We'll discuss their Emirates Cup schedule, which came out on Wednesday. And we'll briefly get to the reports that the Trailblazers have a new potential owner on this edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, after teasing it for a few days, or about a week actually, by having the opening day games and then the in-season tournament games, and finally on Thursday, the actual NBA release, it is out. The 80-game schedules for all 30 teams in the NBA released, including your Portland Trailblazers. As I mentioned, it's not an 82-game schedule anymore because of the in-season tournament. Now they have to add 2 games to your schedule. You could play potentially up to 3 games if you make the final, so you could actually play 83 games, though I think they've said that 83rd game does not count towards your stats. But either way, it's an 80-game schedule now with 2 games added at some point in time in December to make either the games that you get into the knockout round for the NBA tournament, or the 2 additional games, 1 at home, 1 on the road, that they add to your schedule in order to get you to 82 games. But either way, the NBA schedule has been announced. Portland Trailblazers, same as always, 80 games, 41 on the road, 41 at home. You play every game in the East, or every team in the East twice. You play half the teams in the West 4 times. You play the other half 3 times. And even then, 2 games will be added. So the current schedule that gets released is now no longer the full schedule, as I just mentioned. So there'll actually be 1 or 2 teams, most likely, that you'll end up playing 4 times, though it also depends on who makes the tournament. So either way, Trailblazers schedule is out. It starts on October 22nd by the Trailblazers hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves at Moda Center. Then a game versus the Warriors 2 nights later, also at Moda Center. And then it's the first road trip of the season, a 3-game trip down to Los Angeles, facing the 2 Los Angeles teams, the Clippers and the Lakers, back-to-back nights, having a day off, and then heading to Utah to play the Jazz in Salt Lake City. That gets the Trailblazers off to their first week and a half, 2 weeks of the schedule. A fairly balanced schedule for the Trailblazers this year. That would be my overall take on the schedule this year. Is last season, it seemed like it was really road heavy to start, and then it kind of evened out as the season went on. This year, much more, it feels like, balanced from the start. I think in their first 40 games, I think they have 21 that are on the road and 19 at home. So, that's about as close as you can get it. Much shorter road trips this year, too. Only 2 9-day road trips. I believe last season we had 2 road trips that were both almost 2 weeks long. So much shorter road trips this year. But the reason for that is more back-to-backs. 15 back-to-backs for the Trailblazers this season. That's an increase, I think, of 2 back-to-backs from last season. They were actually below the league average last season for back-to-backs, which is crazy because the Trailblazers, being in Portland, furthest team away from the other teams, so you generally have to travel a little bit more. Back-to-backs make sense because you're trying to pick up some days. So 15 back-to-backs this year. So that is an increase, including a ridiculous stretch in January. I have never seen this in my 18 seasons with the team. The Blazers have a stretch in January where they play 3 back-to-back series in a row. Some of those are home, some of those are away. I think maybe 2 are away, and maybe 1 is home and away. But to have 3 back-to-back series in a row, never seen that before, which, and again, part of it, one of the ways to shorten those trips up is by having back-to-backs on the road, which I think generally players prefer. I know as a media person, I prefer it as well. When you're on the road, I'd almost just rather just get the games knocked out rather than spending extra time on the road. Now, granted, it also depends on how those games are set up. You don't really have really long travels in between those back-to-backs, but generally, in particular, this is still a fairly young team, fairly young legs. I think they're probably better off having those back-to-backs and having more time off later than they are having that time on the road where they have days off in between. So the schedule for the Portland Trailblazers, let's go ahead and just get to some of the details of it here. As I mentioned, the Trailblazers start their season on the 22nd. Games per month, they start out with 6 games in October, 3 home, 3 away. November has 14 games, 6 home, 8 away. I think you can make a good case November is, if they're not their toughest month of the season, their second toughest month of the season. December, you have 14 games, 7 home, 7 away, and that includes Cup consolation games if you assume the Blazers or not, or additional Cup games. There'll at least be 2 additional Cup games in December that are not currently on the schedule, either knockout round games or just regular season games that you play against teams that also didn't make the knockout round. Trailblazers in a very tough group. So if they are going to make the knockout round, they're going to have to play a heck of some basketball because they're in an incredibly tough group. Every group in the West is tough, but their group is especially tough. Then in January, 15 games, 8 at home, 7 away. That looks like a decent month. But the problem with it is that, as I mentioned, they have those 3 back-to-back series, which is just crazy. So 15 games in January, a good argument to be made that that's one of their most difficult months. In fact, it's definitely one of their most difficult months. 12 games in February, which is quite a few games in February. Usually, with the All-Star break, you have fewer games, but they managed to squeeze in 12 in February, 7 at home, 5 on the road. And then March, which I think is probably the odds-on favorite for Portland's toughest month of the season. 16 games in March, the most games they have of any month this season. 7 home, 9 away, a lot of back-to-backs in those as well. And then you finish off with 5 games in April, 3 at home, 2 away. Games by day of the week, they have 12 on Mondays, 9 on Tuesdays, 14 on Wednesdays. That's a lot on Wednesdays. 6 on Thursdays, 17 on Friday, 6 on Saturday, and 16 on Sunday. I know those Friday, Saturday, Sunday games a lot of times are the best chance to get out to the Moda Center to see games, so I'm glad to have a number of those this season. I think almost 20% of their schedule this year is on games that are on the weekend. They're 18.3% according to the NBA in terms of the games Trailblazers have this season that are on the weekend, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's good for those of you trying to get to Moda Center, though obviously a lot of those games are going to be on the road as well. New TV deal this year, the Trailblazers with 6 national TV games, 6 of those on NBC, 1 of those on Prime, 1 of those on Peacock. All those games, my understanding, will be streaming as well. All the NBC games will stream on Peacock. Also, I don't know exactly how the new TV deal shakes out in terms of exclusivity for the local broadcast. It sounds like the ABC games, which the Blazers don't have any, those are the games that are exclusive. And then some of the NBC games, I guess, can be taken exclusive, but we don't know exactly which games are going to be just yet. So generally, you will be able to see almost all, if not all, of the games on KUNP, 2.2 and Blazer Vision. Well, I know you'll get to see them all on Blazer Vision, but also potential to see some of those games on national television as well with that new TV deal. Not entirely sure how that shakes out. And also, too, like, we keep calling it a TV deal. It's more of a media deal because they're not on TV. Some of those games are streaming. Prime is not television. That's streaming. Peacock, that's streaming. It's always like broadcast, too, is always kind of confusing because technically things on ESPN aren't broadcast. That's cable. So even calling it broadcast, that's a misnomer. You don't care about this stuff. It also does not matter. But it's one of those things I think about when I'm writing my stories. And I'm like, well, technically they're not broadcasting this game. It's going out on cable. Semantics, folks. Let's see here. What next? Back-to-backs. That's a big one. As I've talked about, 15 back-to-backs this season, the most for any team in the NBA, which you would expect that to be the case. 1 of those in October, 2 in November, 3 in December, 4 in January, and as I mentioned, 3 of those in a consecutive series. Never seen that before. 2 in February, 1 that straddles February and March. We have a February 28th, March 1st back-to-back as well. That always throws off my count, but you didn't catch me this time, NBA. And then 2 of those in March. Back-to-backs by the type. They have 8 away back-to-backs, so all on the road. Those are, as I mentioned, those are generally the most common back-to-backs because when you're out on the road, you're playing teams that are closer together. You might as well knock those off in back-to-backs rather than having days off on the road. 5 of those are home and homes. That has increased throughout the years. When I first started working for the team, we maybe had 1 or 2 of those throughout the years. Now those have increased as teams, or as the NBA has really tried to decrease the amount of travel that teams have to endure every year. So having games at home, back-to-back, sometimes back-to-back series. In fact, I don't know if I think they have 1 versus Sacramento, but it's not even home and home, it's home and away. So they have reduced the back-to-back home series a little bit. Those are terrible for ticket sales. Teams don't like them because It's hard to sell tickets in back-to-back games playing the same team. Just a little inside baseball there in terms of some of the business of the NBA. So they have reduced those, but the home and home back-to-backs have increased throughout the years. Blazers had 5 of those this year, and then 1 home away back-to-backs. It's obviously when you start at home and then go somewhere and play the second game on the road, and then 1 the opposite of that, where you start on the road and then finish up the back-to-back at home. The teams currently, the Trailblazers will only play 3 times in the West, are the Lakers, the Mavericks, the Suns, the Warriors, the Pelicans, and the Spurs. They have 2 home games versus the Mavs and 1 on the road. 1 home game versus Golden State, 2 of those on the road. 2 home games versus the Lakers. That's good for the ticket sales as well. 1 of those at Staples. 1 home game versus New Orleans and 2 on the road. That's tough because travel, it's a long way to get to New Orleans. Phoenix, 2 home games, 1 at home. Everyone likes a trip to Phoenix. It's a nice sunny retreat a lot of times. And then finally, San Antonio, 1 at home, 2 away. That's also kind of a long trip too, so that kind of stinks. That doesn't really matter for those of you who don't travel, which is 99.99999% of you. And then when it comes to travel, as you might expect, we weren't the highest travel team in 2024-25, if I'm not mistaken. But we're back, baby. The Portland Trailblazers traveling 51,000 miles this season, more than any other team in the NBA. The league average 45,000 miles this year. The league minimum 40,000 miles this year. Portland Trailblazers clocking in at 51,000 miles on the road this year. The most of any team, 6,000 miles more, which I think that's like 2 times across the country of any of the average, and then 11,000 miles more than the team with the fewest miles, which has got to be an East Coast team somewhere. In terms of the fresh and tired games, what that means is if you didn't play the night before, but the team you're playing did, that is a fresh game for you. If you played the night before, but the other team didn't, that is a tired game for you. And then if both the situations are even, that it's an even game for your team. The Trailblazers this season have 11 games in which they are fresh, meaning that they will have more rest than their opponent. They have 9 games this season in which they will be tired, meaning that they have less rest than their opponent that night. And then 60 games this year where they will be even. So the Nets on that, they are +2 in terms of fresh games. Again, those things, they kind of matter, but obviously injuries matter. Where you're at in a trip matters. If it's on a trip matters. So, how close to the All-Star break those are. A lot of those things go into that. But the NBA has generally tried to be cognizant of the fact that it is generally tougher to play a team that is more rested than you are. And so they've tried to make sure that as best they can, teams are generally going into games with the same amount of rest. Obviously, 60 times this year, that is the case. So, a quarter of the time this year, you're either coming in with an advantage or you're tired. But either way, not that big of a deal. Real quick, when it comes to back-to-backs, the Trailblazers, as I mentioned, have 15 back-to-backs this year. They have 6 back-to-backs where they have no travel, so those are home and home, or just home and home, so I guess that's 6. 2 of those where they travel over 750 miles, and 2 of those where they have a time zone change. I'm guessing that both those are the same. The ones where they have to travel over 750 miles are also probably the same ones where they have a time zone change. As I mentioned previously, shorter road trips this year. The longest trip the Trailblazers have this year is 9 days, 5 games, whereas last season, I believe there was at least 1 6-game trip, and I believe there was a 7-game trip as well. So shorter trips this year. They have 2 instances where they play 9 or 5 games over the course of 9 days. That's actually that rhythm for a trip is just about right. I think that's basically like 1 back-to-back and then the rest of the games, a day off in between. That makes sense. Their longest homestand, exactly the same, 9 days, 5 games, and that's in February, and then that leads into the All-Star break as well. So kind of a stretch there at home or with rest for the Trailblazers. So a good chance, if they are in that playoff discussion or in the play-in discussion, a chance to maybe get a little rest there before the All-Star break and then head into the final 2 months of the season, hopefully with a little momentum. Obviously, that is way in advance of where we're at right now since we were just talking about the schedule. But, those are kind of things that, your mind starts to wander about a bit when you do look at the NBA schedule. So that's it. The 80-game schedule for the Portland Trailblazers as of right now. 2 more games will be added. 15 back-to-backs, 51,000 miles on the road this year. two road trips, the longest road trips they have, 9 days, 5 games. Longest homestand, also 9 days, 5 games as well. So a pretty balanced schedule, as I mentioned. That'd be my overall take. A much more balanced schedule than last season. We're at home for Christmas, so that's nice. We're at home for Thanksgiving, so that is nice. We are on the road for New Year's this year, which I feel like we're almost, I wouldn't say always on the road for New Year's, but very often it feels like we are on the road for New Year's. We have a 3 game trip. We will play in Oklahoma City on New Year's Eve, which is exactly where everyone wants to be on New Year's Eve, in Oklahoma City. And then we will fly that night, I would assume, to New Orleans. I guess maybe we might stay then. Well, no, Oklahoma City to New Orleans is a pretty short flight. I guess we could be in New Orleans by maybe like 1 o'clock on New Year's. So that might be a decent option. But those are things that don't really matter for, again, 99.999% of you. But those of us who do travel, actually, I don't think I'm actually, well, I don't know if I'm going to go on that trip or not. But either way, for the most part, home for the holidays this year as well, which, I think we're probably pretty close to getting a Christmas Day game here at some point in time. I would imagine we'll see how it goes this year. I think next year we'll get a Christmas Day game. They're not usually my favorite, but I know how much you guys love those, and I am more than willing to work on Christmas for something that the fans generally love. So the holidays you pretty much have off for the Trailblazers, which chance to get together with your family and friends. But we do have a game right before Thanksgiving, so that's nice too. A chance, when everyone's home for the holiday, a chance to get around the fire and watch some Portland Trailblazers basketball. So that is your Portland Trailblazers 2025-26 NBA schedule. 2 more games to be announced at some point in time in December. But as of right now, that is what we know. A balanced schedule, at least more so than years past. All right, I was going to record a edition on Wednesday to talk about the or the Emirates NBA Cup schedule that was released on Wednesday. Obviously, news breaking about a potential new owner for the Trailblazer. I decided, you know what, that's probably not big enough news to really do anything about that specifically. But I did want to get to it real fast here, since it is the 3rd year of the NBA Cup, the in-season tournament, the Emirates NBA Cup, the 2025 NBA Emirates Cup, I believe is what it's supposed to be called. Trailblazers in Group C with the Nuggets, Rockets, Warriors, and Spurs. As I mentioned, a very difficult group for the Trailblazers. Technically, so the way that they put the groups together is basically by a record for last season. Like, each team is put into a bucket by like where their record was at. And the Trailblazers didn't have the worst record last year in their group. That actually, I believe, was the Spurs, or they ended up tied, but the Blazers had the tiebreaker. But the Spurs obviously have made a lot of changes in the offseason, are expected to be a much better team than they were last year. Both the Nuggets and the Rockets, I think, are 2 of the favorites, along with the Thunder, to win the West this year. You could probably make a case for the Warriors as well, though it seems like they're kind of starting to run out of juice a little bit there as well. But a very difficult group there. As I mentioned, there's no easy groups in the West. That is a pretty difficult group, nonetheless, for the Trailblazers. So they will play 4 group games versus each team in their group, and then the team that has the best record from that group will advance to the knockout round. Also, 1 wild card team per conference. So the team that finishes second in their group that has the best record or the most points, I think there's some kind of point system that they do there. That team will also qualify for the in-season tournament. So the Trailblazers 2025 in-season tournament schedule, NBA Cups or NBA Emirates Cup schedule, is as follows. On October 31st, Halloween night, the Trailblazers face the Denver Nuggets at Moda Center. And then the next 2 on the road, November 14th at the Houston Rockets and November 21st at the Golden State Warriors, by wrapping up their group stage play by hosting the San Antonio Spurs on November 26th. As I mentioned, a very tough group. The Emirates Cup tips off on the 31st in team markets and then culminates with the semifinals that'll be on December 13th in Vegas, along with the championship, which will also be in Vegas on December 16th. So the first knockout games are at sites that are local. So whatever the team with the best record, they will host that game. And then that moves on to the neutral site in Las Vegas for the final and the semifinal. 6 group winners, 3 from each conference, advance, along with 1 wild card from each conference as well. As for the odds for getting out of Group C, the Rockets are the favorite to get out of Group C at plus 180. The Nuggets are next at plus 220. Then you have the Warriors at plus 425, Spurs at plus 475, and then the Portland Trailblazers at plus 1400. So the Trailblazers, by far the team picked least likely to come out of their group. The Rockets are almost a 2-1 to come out of the group. So Vegas not putting a whole lot of faith in the Portland Trailblazers' chances of getting to the knockout round. But when you look at the teams they're facing, Not really entirely surprising because that is a very difficult group. So the way it works, they'll play those 4 games. If they advance onto the knockout round, they'll either host a game or they'll be on the road for a game, and then they'll play one more game after that, depending on if they win or lose. Obviously, if they win, move on to the semifinals and then the final. If they win that one, if they lose, they play one more game, if I'm not mistaken, because you got to get to 82 games. If you do not make the knockout round, you end up having just one game at home and one game on the road during that week where they have the knockout round games. I think that's the second week in, or it's in the first or second week in December. So as I mentioned, there'll be 2 games added to Portland's schedule at some point in time, either knockout round games in the NBA Cup or 2 games versus other teams that did not qualify for the knockout round as well. We'll know that sometime in December. That really lightens up that schedule in December as well. That also forces teams to kind of play a few more games in the other months or other times, because basically for that 2 week cup stretch, you only basically play a couple games. So it's kind of a nice little break in the schedule after when you get to December, but also kind of makes everything else a little more dense as well. So that is the NBA's Cup schedule. The Emirates, the 2025 Emirates NBA Cup schedule for your Portland Trailblazers out of West Group C. Well, now that the schedule is out, you can start planning out the next 6 months of your life. One of the things you might want to do is get out to Spirit Mountain Casino, where you can get ready to rock the night away with the legendary classic rock icons Bachman Turner Overdrive at Spirit Mountain Casino in September. Join the folks at Spirit Mountain Casino on Friday, September 19th, 2025 for an electrifying evening of timeless hits, unforgettable energy, and a concert experience that will leave you singing along all night long. Whether you're a lifelong fan or discovering BTO for the first time, how could you possibly just be discovering BTO? This is your chance to hear the iconic icons like Taking Care of Business, an absolutely iconic anthem, and You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, also another iconic rock anthem performed live at the Northwest's premier entertainment destination. Bachman Turner Overdrive has been rocking audiences since 1970s with their high-octane sound and unforgettable lyrics. Their music defined a generation and continues to resonate with audiences today. You got that right. This performance is your chance to experience the legendary sound in an intimate, state-of-the-art venue. Tickets are on sale now to the general public, and VIP packages are still available for those looking to elevate their experience at Spirit Mountain Casino. BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive, September 19th, Spirit Mountain Casino. Tickets on sale now. Spirit Mountain Casino, Highway 18 and Grand Ronde. Elevate your game. And finally, even though I have absolutely nothing to add about it because I know just as much as you guys know, because all I know is what I've read, according to reports, Tom Dundan reportedly buys the Trailblazers for $4.2 billion at auction. Obviously, team going on sale a few weeks ago officially. Actually, well, not a few weeks ago, but right after the draft lottery. Team announced that they were officially going to be put up for sale. It sounds like that has progressed a lot faster than I think a lot of people thought it would. With the news on Wednesday that Tom Dundan, who owns the Hurricanes in the NHL and also is an investor in various other sports properties, including some Top Golf stuff and some pickleball stuff, which as a pickleball player, I appreciate that. According to the reports, the purchase has been agreed upon. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that has to get sussed out before that can go official. The Celtics sale that I think was announced, maybe even as long as 8 months ago, that just went official on Wednesday. So these things do take a while to go through the process. They have to get approved. NBA has to do their due diligence. It sounds like there's still maybe adding some local investors as well. There is also a local angle to the report, at least, of the sale. Shiltai of the Collective Global venture capital firm here in town. Supposedly one of the partners as well. Also sounds like there's some reporting out there that they've also approached some other local people about becoming maybe small investors. So we'll see how that goes. But again, that is the reports, and as of right now, it seems like the reporting is pretty solid. Again, I have nothing to add to it that hasn't already been reported. I've done no reporting on my own as a team employee. It's not really my place. So this is definitely one of the instances where, I probably don't have a whole lot of new information for you. Though I would also say too that that generally seems to be the case, period, when it comes to sales stuff. No one knows anything locally when it comes to sales stuff. No one knew that the team had gone up for sale or that they had the auction. No, it got reported by Sportico that Tom Dundan had bought the team, or at least had agreed in principle to purchase the team reportedly. Every single thing I've ever heard about the sale where people said like, well, it has to be sold by this date or it has to be done X, Y, and Z. None of that stuff has ever been right. It happens a lot now that like people just assume things and then they repeat it over and over and over again. And then that gets taken as gospel when it's really just best guesses or educated guesses and really more guesses than education in that situation. So, when it comes to this kind of stuff, like I would just say, like, just remember that, because like a lot of times, like this stuff, people can opine on it, they can have opinions, and again, they can make inferences, but the actual reporting on that stuff, like every single time, anything sale related has basically not happened until the actual, like, this is going to happen. Not like I've been told that this might be happening. It's like all that stuff has always been wrong. Same thing with like evaluation stuff. Like valuations, like the Forbes stuff is always like, it always makes me chuckle because like it's just a guess. And it's an educated guess, but it's still mostly a guess. A team is worth what it sells for. That's the evaluation. Books aren't generally open, so a lot of these things people just have to make again inferences and assumptions about some of the dollar amounts. These people are smart, but again, they're still just making guesses. And so like when it comes to like how much is a team worth, they don't know. When it comes to who's going to buy the team until someone actually like puts in the bid, they don't know. When it comes to what it says in that will that Paul Allen drew up years and years and years ago to run most of the stuff to his charities, no one knows the stipulations of that agreement. Except for the people that are actually involved in it. Like anyone who's out here trying to tell you that they have a good idea or someone told them something, it's just never right. So that would be my whole point. Like it's just never right. So, but this does seem like it's very well reported. There's been on the record comments. No one wants to talk a whole lot about it because again, like just agreeing to buy a team does not mean that you have purchased the team. Like there again, there's a lot of things that could go sideways. It can go as smoothly as the Celtics sale and what sounds like the majority sale of the Lakers from Jenny Buss or from the Buss family. Those can go smoothly. Or you can have a situation like with the Timberwolves where you agree to sell the team, then you say you're not going to sell the team, and then you have to have a protracted court battle. I'm not saying that's going to happen here. In fact, it's not going to happen here. But all I'm saying is that a lot of times, even when these things are agreed upon, things can go sideways for all kinds of different reasons. So until it's actually made official, it's not official. But this does seem very likely to happen, saying all the right things about keeping the team in Portland, which that is obviously the most important thing is the Portland Trailblazers must remain in Portland. Period. Full stop. They cannot leave. That would be disastrous. And there's no reason to believe that that is going to happen. I know that, and I think I do get the sense that people feel a lot more confident about the team staying now than they did 3 days ago. I was always fairly sure that was going to happen anyways, but I think anything that makes people feel better about the position of the team here in town is a good thing. Any groups that want to come out and say like, hey, we want to keep the Portland Trailblazers in Portland, I think that's a good thing. Any politicians that want to come out and say, hey, we're going to do what it takes to keep this team here, that is a good thing. And that's what I can report on. I can tell you that all those things would be good. It sounds like there's a lot of support in the community, in the business community, in government, in obviously amongst fans, in the local population, Oregon, Southwest Washington, even further up in Washington. So that is the report. I'm sure you've all seen it. And again, at this point in time, I don't think there's any reason to believe those things aren't true. In fact, there's plenty of reason to believe that they are true. But until things are actually buttoned down and squared away, you're not going to get a whole lot of analysis from Casey Holdahl about that because, again, that's just really not my place. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase. Some exciting times here in Portland. I think I said at the beginning of the offseason, this is going to be a very active and interesting offseason, and it absolutely has been one of the most dense and news-filled off seasons that I can ever remember in my time with the Portland Trailblazers. But now with the schedule out, that is kind of the last big piece of news before the start of training camp, which will not be until the end of September. So finally, maybe a chance for everyone to take a deep breath, take a little time, get out of town a little bit, and ruminate on just the last year of the Portland Trailblazers, and then start considering what the 2025-26 season will hold for your Portland Trailblazers as well. A new look team, a lot of new coaching staff, a lot of new players, new directions, building off of what they've already accomplished, or not necessarily accomplished, but building on the progress that they've made last season. Hopefully seeing more and more going into this season. Thank you so much for joining me, as always, on this edition of The Briefcase. Please like, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. My neighbors are starting to make noise, which is going to make my dogs bark here, so I'm going to try to get through this before that happens. Please like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast to The Briefcase and all the other Trailblazers podcasts on the Trailblazers Podcast Network. By the way, too, Blazers Balcony with my good friend Brooke Olsendam. We've been taking a little time off. We're going to be heading back here. So new editions of the Blazers Balcony coming soon as well, but always new editions of The Briefcase. It might take a little bit of time here as things start to quiet down here for the next couple weeks. I am going to take some vacation here, but we'll be back soon enough with new editions whenever news breaks. So for myself, thank you for joining me. As always, I'm Casey Holdahl. You have been watching The Briefcase. Go Blazers.